Hey everyone, so I'm trying out a different video format this time around. So basically, we're just going to do a bit of a screen share, and I just want to see how this works out. So one of the things that I wanted to do was talk about a little bit, I guess you could call it almost watch philosophy things, because as I've mentioned before, watches are one of the hobbies that I have, but specifically I wanted to talk about, I guess kind of quality versus quantity, and also kind of the way you can get distracted by different things along your way. I guess the best way to start off with is I'm going to start off by showing, I've got some tabs set up here ahead of time, and I'm going to explain a little bit of kind of where I'm going with this. So first of all, I wanted to show you this one. This is the Omega Planet Ocean. This is the pre-ceramic version. This is actually the watch that I have. I have a couple of different pictures of it. Unfortunately, not really great super pictures. One of the things that I do want to do is get like a macro lens on my camera so that I can take good close-up shots. But this is the exact model that I have. I have the 42 millimeter version. Same color scheme. You got the orange and the black. This with the steel bracelet. This is exactly the one that I own, and I bought it about 4 years ago. Going to be almost 5 coming up in the new year. The reason I bring this up is that one of the things that I did early on, kind of in my collecting career, if you want to call it that, is I had this idea in my head. I wanted to have watches from kind of the different Swiss brands. I wanted an Omega. I wanted a Rolex. I wanted a Jaeger-LeCoultre. And I will butcher some pronunciation, so you have to forgive me in advance. But regardless, the point was that I wanted to have, a Breitling. I actually still like Tag, even though, they don't have the greatest reputation. The resale value is terrible. Just to be clear, if you know what you're doing going in, you can accept that. But it's something you have to understand going in. But regardless, I had like these slots in my mind. But along the way, I found myself getting distracted. I did end up buying the Omega, as it said. I did end up buying a Datejust at some point, a used one. I have had a couple of different watches through the different times. I've had a couple of Breitlings. Like, I've gotten a little bit of the way towards what I was originally shooting for. But along the way, and what this video is going to talk about, and there's going to be probably a couple in this series that are going to be semi-related to each other. It won't be a part one, part two thing. You can listen to them individually, but they're going to follow kind of the theme, the evolution of how you change the way you go about it and what the philosophy is. So I started off with this one because this one is kind of the cornerstone of my collection as it currently stands. You might think the Datejust or one of those would make more sense. It is a fantastic watch, but it's one of those things where I might end up replacing it with something else at some point. But this one here is one that I chose, one that I like, and one that almost 5 years on, I still consider the centerpiece. And everything else will kind of complement it to fill up different roles. But one of the things that I wanted to show you is different watches that have tempted me, so to speak, along the way. Like right now, I'm in the process of saving up for one of the next pieces of my collection. One of the ones that you've seen probably in a previous video is the Frederique Constant, the Moon Phase. That one holds a role in my collection as well as kind of the dress watch, the Moon Phase watch. I'll probably still get a few more dress watches along the way, but I very much like the aesthetic. I like the in-house movement. In much the same way for this one, I like the aesthetic. I like the orange and black. That, it appeals to me. I enjoy the fact it is a solid, strong diver. But the reason I started off showing you this one is because the fact of the matter is a couple of the ones that have tempted me almost kind of usurp on the territory of the Omega. And the problem that I ran into, and where kind of my evolution as a collector is gone, is that I've resisted that temptation. Because in reality, if it's doing the same function that the Omega is doing, why do I need another one? Other than just to have one. Obviously, this kind of video doesn't apply to you if you have an unlimited budget and can pretty much spend on anything you want. Well, then buy them all. Wear them whenever you feel like, based on the day of the week. But for most of us, we have to pick and choose a little bit. But I want to show you a couple of ones that have kind of tempted me. So the first one I'm going to show you here in the first tab is the Oris Diver 65. So a couple of these are going to be on the websites for the different watch manufacturers, but I just want to use that to kind of give you an idea. Now, I really like this watch. I enjoy the aesthetic of it. It's got a vintage look to it. I really like kind of this, green, brown, I guess, Perlon strap. I really don't know exactly what they go for it. It's 40 millimeters. It's a nice solid piece. I think it uses an ETA or ETA movement. It's very well made and it looks fantastic. And the thing is, I kind of kept kicking this one around in my head. I was like, well, this would be kind of a cool beater watch, especially with that, kind of pearl-on strap and everything, and the aesthetic appeal to me. But at the same time, again, I kind of go back and do this as a diver watch. So if I went and I bought this, then it would end up splitting time with this. And this is literally my favorite watch, so it doesn't really make any sense. Now, this one is less expensive than when I bought the Omega back brand new in the store, but at the same time, like, it's redundant. It's unnecessary. It would be, I think the retail here would be like $2,300, and obviously you could get a discount on that, or you could buy it, gray market and obviously get much cheaper. I think Jomo Shop has this for under 1,000 US, which would end up being maybe 1,300 Canadian. So you could definitely do a lot better than retail on this. But at the same time, even if it was $1,000, $500, it doesn't matter, $100. It would be 100 or 500 or 1,000 that would go into this, which could then go into the next kind of grail or, piece to add to the collection. Earlier on in my collecting career, I would probably have bought this. And that's kind of the subject of the video and kind of why I wanted to point this out. But it doesn't mean that I still don't see from time to time watches that tempt me, things that appeal to me. But I kind of use that as something where I want to look, I want to see what I like about it, and then decide, like, is this the version that fits in with kind of what I want the collection to be? And I have to kind of keep in the back of my mind that what I want in the collection is going to change over time. Like this here, aesthetically, I love it. If money was no object, I would buy it, and then, I'd have this and the Omega kind of serving almost the same function, but to different degrees. I might wear the Omega most of the time and then wear this one on weekends or some combination therein. I'd find a way. But in this case, it's not necessary, and it doesn't really add. So let me go to the next watch here to kind of go another thing that I've been kind of looking at lately that has also tempted me much the same way, and I'll show you a couple different variations on this. So this is the Stratton Curve Chrono Watch. So these are sold out right now. But when I saw these originally, it was a Kickstarter, and they obviously have them in different colors and different variations. I'm very partial to the green one myself. So let me see if I can put the green one back on. I'm actually going to try to do this in one take if I can. We'll see if this works. What I really like about this one is kind of the 70s chronograph aesthetic. I love the mesh bracelets. And obviously this model is now sold out, so that's fine. But when I was looking at it, it was still available, and it would have been $499 US. Again, much the same way, it's something that I could have pulled the trigger on right now. It's something that I could have literally had. If I was willing to kind of push myself into the idea of, well, it would satisfy an itch. It would scratch an itch right now. But then it would still also set me back. Now, this watch here would, it'd be really fun to wear. I'd enjoy it. It would be all great. The hunt is the most enjoyable part. The acquisition and getting it and, the honeymoon period is probably the second favorite part. It is something, it has to have a certain element to it if it's something that's going to stick the test of time for you. Like I said, the Omega for me, we're almost 5 years on, and I still consider it to be my favorite watch. It finds its way back into rotation all the time. Something like this, I think I could enjoy, and I think it would probably find its way into the rotation. And I have my eye out for a chronograph, but then I have to think to myself, is this the chronograph that I would want? Or is this like a chronograph placeholder that would then get upgraded and maybe upgraded again? And that's where it gets a little bit trickier. So the chronograph, this is an example of one that could have easily derailed me a little bit. It wouldn't have thrown me completely off, but it would have been $500 US that could have been diverted towards the one I'm shooting for. So it becomes a quality versus quantity thing. For a long time, I was going for quantity. I kind of want to hold back and go for quantity and quality. And the other thing that should be mentioned here for a lot of folks that might have the idea in their head is we're talking about disposable income here. We're talking about after the bills are paid, after everything else is taken care of, then this is play money. If you're in a position where $500 US would be a lot, it's not really play money for you, then this conversation doesn't really, you might be interested in listening to it, but it's not really for you. It's in a case where you can afford. I don't buy any of the watches I've had in my collection with money that I can't afford to spend. And that's a big thing that you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind. So it's all relative from there. But this would still divert some funds that could have been used towards maybe a Grail watch for me. Along the same lines, like I said, I'm on a bit of a chronograph kick. Let me show you a different one here. This is from Junghans. It's the Maestro Chronoscope. Again, really aesthetically a beautiful watch. This one is a little bit less sporty and a little bit more dressy, but really a very attractive, watch. It uses, an ATA movement and everything, but it's got like a classic aesthetic. Very simple design, and it's got, wonderful colors, the dials and the leather strap to it. Again, this one might be a little under $2,000 US, a little bit more elegant. They even use it here. But the reality is that, again, the same way, we end up with, could I buy this? Yes. But if I did, would it detract from what I'm trying to do, my goals are? In this case, it would, because I kind of have my eye out on a certain piece. Not a chronograph necessarily, yes, but I still obviously have my eye out on chronographs. And I'll show you one more under that same category here. Again, this is a Steinhardt. Very different, again, back to kind of a sporty chronograph. It uses an ATA movement. They advertise it very clearly here. They don't hide it from you. And this one would be about 823 euros. Now, I think this one here, since I'm not in Europe, I'm in Canada, this would be, I think, the price that I would go minus the shipping costs. So this would be about 1,100 Canadian for me. So this is probably not the least expensive, because the Curve Chrono would be, but it would be kind of the middle ground. And it's a 42 millimeter, similar size to my Omega, but it's a little bit of a, from what I've seen, it's a bit of a heavier, it's a heavy watch, because it's using that ATA movement, fitting it into like a stainless steel, like a heavy case, but still a really cool aesthetic, very reminiscent. It's realistically, it's an homage to kind of a Panda chronograph, very similar to some older Rolex models, I believe, as my memory serves me. But nonetheless, it's one of those things, like it's a very tempting piece for the reason that it's very attractive. It's attractively priced. It's, something that could work, but it would, again, kind of detract me from what I'm shooting towards right now. And what I have my eye on right now, I'll show it to you, but I'm going to probably talk more about that in a future video, where I want to talk about kind of what my medium and long-term plans are. But this one, I'm going to show you kind of what I have my eye on at the moment. So let me go to the Rolex website here, just to show this to you. I probably should have had this one queued up as well, but this one I didn't have ready to go yet. So let me see if I can go here. I haven't been on the site in a bit. Let's look at, Rolex watches, perfect. Let's take a look. So right here, the one I have in mind is what's considered the entry-level model in the Rolex range, which is actually very funny to me. Oh, this is actually new for me, because I hadn't been on the site in a while. I love that they actually include the retail price on here. This is actually really good. Fantastic. It's good. It's good detail to know. I really like the aesthetic on these, and I like the color options they do, especially on the 39 millimeter one. So this is the dark rhodium dial with kind of the blue pips. Really attractive. I've held it in my hand at the store a couple of times. It's really a very good looking one. Now I do want to see if I can pull up some of the other models. Here we go. Perfect. So let me take a look at these with you guys. So guys and gals, let's be fair. So you've got a couple different ones. You have the 34 millimeter model, which is a little too small for me. The 36, which I could totally wear. It's a very attractive model as well. But this one here is kind of the one that I like. I like, I think they call it the kind of the grape dial. Let's see if this is right. Let me see if I've got this. Yes, the red grape dial. It's got kind of a sunburst effect to it. It's really a super attractive watch. And this is the one that I kind of have my eye on. Obviously, it's not something you can go and pick up overnight. Well, some people can, but I'm not in a position to do that. I am in a position where I can do it if I plan specifically for it, if I go through the trouble of saving up. And that's what I've been working on. But this is where, to stick with the main subject of the video, those distractions combined would be less expensive than this watch entirely. So this is where that quality versus quantity thing comes into play. If I want quantity, this doesn't make any sense. for the same amount of money, the 6,500 Canadian dollars, I could very easily have this one, about 2,000 Canadian, let's say, for example. This one, 500 US, that's maybe 800, 900 Canadian, so we're at maybe 3,000. This one, another, almost 2,000, a little over 2,000. So we're at just about 6 there. And this one would put me over the top, but the point is that I could get every single one of these, basically, for the price of this one. Obviously, if I negotiate a discount, that'll help. But either way, this one is going for kind of quality over quantity again. Now, is Rolex the highest quality watch out there? Some people would argue yes. I would argue no. You've got some haute horology brands out there that I think would be on a higher scale in terms of finishing and everything. But in terms of kind of the combination of luxury and robustness and kind of the history behind it, this one's a good solid one. And what's funny about it to me is that being for an entry-level version of it, I find it more attractive than some of the other ones. I was a guy who enjoyed the Submariner and those models, but the reality is the Submariner, it's almost reached the point of almost too common. I've seen too many good homages to the Submariner that if I want a 40 millimeter black-faced, black bezeled diver, there's a lot of excellent options that don't have to be the Rolex Submariner. And in my case, for a dive watch, again, I don't dive, but if I have a dive watch, this one's 600 meters, 2,000-foot diver. I'm good to go. I don't really need a whole collection of divers. This one here kind of straddles the line between dress watch and kind of a sporty watch, but it also gives me that lovely dial that sets it apart and is a little bit different. This would be one of my kind of medium range to long-term goals, something that I have my eye on. It could happen sooner rather than later. We'll see how that goes. I've been making good progress. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video. So I'm going to stop here because I could keep going for a while. But this is kind of the idea. And this is where, even though my channel isn't predominantly about watches, it is one of my passions and it is something I enjoy talking about. So if you come across this video and you have any opinions on it, I'd love to hear them. I'd love to answer, speak to it in the comment section. But I will stop here. And by all means, please, like, subscribe, and comment if you have any opinions on it, one way or the other. Maybe you disagree with me, quantity is better. Or maybe you're along the same lines. Maybe you're a fan or a collector, an enthusiast, who kind of likes quality and doesn't necessarily want quantity. I've had a little bit of that, and I'm sure at some point I'll make a video kind of talking about my history and where I kind of, at the time when I focus on quantity over quality and kind of how I have the evolution of my collecting philosophy to get to where it is right now. So I'll cut it off there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.